We all know that Bible, the word Bible, means books, many books. In fact, in the Old Testament, there are close to 50, and then in the New Testament, there are close to 30 books. We also know that these books were put together in the Orthodox Church, in our church, in the 4th century. And it started being distributed in the way that it could be back then because it was rewritten by hand, and it was mostly kept in churches. But the question is, who wrote the Bible? And the short answer is, Bible is a God-man written book. It's very important that we acknowledge this reality. All throughout mankind, God is not some type of a control freak who wants to do everything by himself, but all throughout the history of mankind, God has been making an effort to do everything together with us. That's why God became a man in the person of Jesus Christ. That's why Jesus Christ is fully God and fully man. So everything throughout the history is about working together, if you will. Just as any parent would want with their children. They want their children, in fact, to prosper, to do things, and so on and so forth, to work together, if you wanna say it that way. So, the same way the Bible was written, it was written inspired by God, by people, by human beings. Bible was not written where God would be dictating and the poor person would be in some type of a, what would you call it, obsessed or controlled state where they wouldn't even know what they're doing. You know, I remember many years ago, I met with someone who just out of the blue started speaking in languages, and then afterwards told me that they were just they said they were inspired by the Holy Spirit. So I said, "Did you know this was going to come?" And he said, "No." I said, "So it comes without you agreeing?" And he says, "Yes, the Holy Spirit just comes." And I said, "My friend, that's not the Holy Spirit. God doesn't operate that way. God does not take over. You know, he works together with us. Our free will needs to be involved." So, Bible is a God-man written book. We also know that's the truth and fact, because when you look at the Old Testament and the New Testament, you see different styles in writing. If it was dictated by God and these people were just writing whatever God dictated, it would be in the same style, but it's not. I mean, just look at the difference in the writings of the prophets in the Old Testament and their style. Look at the difference in the New Testament, where Matthew, one of the 4 evangelists, Matthew, for example, writes as the person who knew the Old Testament quite a bit, quite well. He takes a lot of Old Testament stories and sayings and words and puts it into his gospel. Then look at the difference between the synoptic gospels. Synoptic gospels are the first 3 gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke. And synoptic basically means similar or same. They wrote, 3 of them wrote about the same events in the lives of Jesus Christ, but the way that they saw it. So they're the same, and that, by the way, is proof that these things happened because they write about these things from their own perspective, but they are much different, for example, than the Gospel of John. The Gospel of John, the last gospel, is much more deeper, because John was, his style was much more deep, or much more philosophical. Then obviously the difference between um, uh, the Jewish style of writing compared to the Greek style of writing. The Jews that had the strict Jewish perspective, and then the Jews that had the Hellenic or Greek perspective. It's just wonderful to see that. But the wonderful part is, as I mentioned at the beginning, the fact that God and man were working together to write these texts that later became part of one book, the Holy Book. In fact, the book that we consider the holiest book, in fact, the book that the history of mankind considers to be the most read, the best, the greatest book. I mean, look at the stories in the Old and New Testament. I mean, there's nothing out there that can be above these writings as we see it, as we read it, as we hear it, and so on. So the Bible is a God-man written book.